locked into the SDLR show.
Also SDLR. SDLR, yeah, reloading sound. La masa, mad.
So big at SDLR, step cross. Wow.
SDLR from Reloaded Sound.
Hello, you are listening to the sounds of SDLR. This is a very special SDLR show here today. I am here doing a very short podcast here for the iSounds course. The iSounds course is a course that runs out of South Street Studios, where we aim to help people with DJing and producing podcasts and radio shows and all sorts. And one of the goals we've got for the iSounds course at the moment is to produce our own podcast. Usually I am a DJ and producer myself. I have my own 2 shows monthly. I also release my own music on labels, and my genre of choice is grime, and all the genres that kind of are brothers or sister of it. Now, one of the main goals in terms of doing this podcast is to do this podcast about something that has a very high interest, or you love it, or whatever it may be. Some people are doing space, some people are doing gaming. For me, music is the most prominent thing in my life, and the thing that has affected my life the most is diving into grime music and becoming a grime DJ and producer. So yeah, that is what my podcast is going to roughly cover. And I am going to go on about some of the origins. I'm going to play some music that pretty much gives the best example of what grime is for anyone that might not know. So yeah, I'm going to kick it off straight away with a track for you called Stop That by Dizzy Rascal. This is one of the most prominent tracks of his first debut album, which was really the album that put grime into mainstream headlights, shall we say. And it is the greatest example of original grime that you could probably get from that era. And as we all know, most people who enjoy music here in the UK know who Dizzy Rascal is now. He's travelled all through mainstream culture, from doing dance, making tunes with Calvin Harris, to doing pretty much everything that an artist could do in his shoes. So I'm going to fade this one out, and I'm going to play Stop That by Dizzy Rascal.
Get that, whoa. Bring that gun, that head that, whoa. He's got a knock, you'll take that, whoa. Big mouth, like mouth, watch that, whoa. Pretty girl, buff your doggy that, whoa. Dizzy Rascal full of format, whoa. Black man, just get a back slap, whoa. I call the shots like fuck it, whoa. Jack and Zach, I've done that, whoa. I'm a rude bread, don't prove that, whoa. Right in the corner, I'm that, whoa. New school, lyrical, pocket, whoa. Best friend, soulmate, what's that, whoa. Girlfriend, wifey, bet that, whoa. She can't go, we know that, whoa. Dedication, we show that, whoa. Chucking them shit like stones. Back with rubber like shoe puppy homes. Inside, outside, running new songs. Section, get girls like two songs. Break bones like a house, wifey, home. Yeah, it's wifey, don't leave me alone. That way, arrogant, work for the crow. Come barefoot like Seth Lee, you got a big gun, come bring it out. Butterfly now, come along, fling it out. We can just do it on one, swing it out. I suggest you never stop swinging out. Who's that, what's that, where am I right? Yeah, man, quick, man, stop spinning out. Kidnap, chicken, rascals, hide out. Coach, let's take it back, get run out. Where's girls, start moving. Come on, girls, brains, start moving. Alright, don't stop, till it's boys, girls, start moving. Come on, girls, boys, start moving. Alright, don't stop till it's right. Come on, don't stop till you're bleeding. Alright, boys, girls, start shooting. Come on, girls, boys, start shooting. Alright, don't stop till it's right. Come on, don't stop till you're bleeding.
So that was Stop That by Dizzy Rascal. This next tune underneath me is a production of Dizzy Rascal called Strings Ho, as he was not only an MC, he was a music producer as well, and he was producing some of the most used instrumentals at the time. But anyway, we're going to go straight on to some of the origins of grime. So, one of the main sister genres that people would say grime came from was a genre called garage. Grime was kind of born out of the mid to late 90s, and during that time, on top of the sort of music scene at the time, was a genre called garage. You had crews such as Heartless Crew, Pay As You Go, and So Solid Crew, who were kind of pushing that sound forward and bringing MCs onto it. You had people like Miss Dynamite that came out from that, Harvey, all sorts of different people from those crews. Wiley came out of Pay As You Go, and he became one of like the head, pretty much next to Dizzy Rascal, one of the head sort of MCs of grime, and even producers as well. But the mid 90s to late 90s, DJs started playing a darker sound, or wanting to play a darker sound. Darker productions were being made. The general sort of speed of garage was 132 beats per minute, all the way up to about 138 beats per minute. They started pushing these records to be played at around 140 BPM, which was kind of unheard of. And then as this was all happening, the people like Dizzy Rascal and Wiley and Slimzy, who were around at the time, started producing records that were a lot darker and hard-hitting. And as you know it, grime was kind of born out of the darker side of garage. So going into the late 90s into the early 2000s, you had your first wave of grime crews, which was crews such as Roll Deep. Again, Pay As You Go was kind of still going at that point and going in more of a garage direction. You have Rough Squad. There was a lot of Nasty Crew as well. You had a lot of different crews, all kind of representing grime in their own way. Now, grime was kind of born out of the boroughs of London, out of street culture and club culture kind of combined. But as this was all happening, they generally had a kind of a lot more streetwise approach to it. There was a lot of that culture involved in the music, and doing the music was kind of them trying to come out of that. And like a lot of like rap, and same with hip hop in America, there was a lot of that culture involved in the music, but at the same time, the people that were doing the music were usually the ones trying to escape that culture. Going through to the sort of mid-2000s, grime had its peaks and drops, and eventually kind of sort of died away for a little while, but then had its come up again in the late 2010s. But to be honest, even to this day, grime kind of has that up and down moment. But the difference is to now is there is a very strong consensus of people that are involved in it, and there's a very strong underground scene of people that keep it going, including myself. So I'm going to play a song from one of the first grime DJs alongside another DJ called Trent. But this DJ is called Slimzy, and he was one of the first to really pioneer the DJ production side of grime. And he also basically co-founded, or founded at the time, Rinse FM, which originally was a pirate radio station. And I'm going to go on about that a bit more after this track. But for now, I'm going to play a track from Trends and Slimzy called Sidewinder Style. And this is an instrumental track. I'm only going to play a short clip of it, but then I will come back to you after we play the tune.
don't like the look of it.
So that was Sidewinder Style by Trends and Slimzy. Now, as I was saying, Slimzy was a pioneer as a DJ and producer in that first wave of grime. He was one of the first to kind of innovate the modern wave of pirate radio. He was climbing the tower blocks of London, setting up transmitters, making sure there was a home for grime to be able to be played and MCs to be able to rehearse their lyrics and DJs to be able to learn how to mix. So he's a very sort of like, he was one of the ones that got the job done, and sort of one of the people that made Rinse FM is what it is today, a fully fledged underground radio station for electronic music and urban music. So yeah, that's Slimzy. But really what I want that kind of segues me onto is talking about how you can get involved in this music if you like the history, you like what it sounds like, if you are curious. The names I've mentioned, Dizzy Rascal, Slimzy, Wiley, Pay As You Go. There's a lot of documentaries out there on YouTube, free to watch. There's a lot of early footage that you can watch as well. Like, I would recommend typing in Risky Roads. And if you want to then get further involved with this, you can then hit up any radio station such as Mode FM, listen to a lot of Mode FM, listen to a lot of Rinse FM, listen to a lot of Slimzy shows, Mac 10. There's loads of different people out there to mention, but I'd be here all day. But you can look up any of these people, and there is a strong scene of people that communicate with one another, and you can very easily get involved and start sort of building your collection and seeing what is all going on about, whether that's as a DJ, a producer, or just someone who enjoys collecting and listening to the music. You can also check out my radio shows, which I have one radio show every fourth Tuesday of the month on a station called Run the Rhythm, which is from 7 till 9 p.m. And then every 4 weeks on a Monday, I have another hour-long show, 9 till 10, on a radio station online called Communal Radio. That's comrade.net. And I always play everything from old school grime all the way up to brand new stuff that people are making to this very day. But if you want to know any more information from myself about what you've heard on this short podcast, do contact me. I am at SDLR UK on everything, on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can hit me up on there, or you can email me at sdlruk@gmail.com. But yeah, that's been my short little podcast as an introduction into what I love doing. A big shout out to the iSounds course. They're doing a really good deed here, helping the community and vulnerable people get into different types of music and production and DJing and podcasts. So big shout out to them. This has been SDLR signing out here on the SDLR show podcast version. Big thank you.